On these next few slides, I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about group work, and specifically group work in the aerospace engineering department. So who is group work important to? It's important to you individually, but also all of you in the aerospace engineering department. So all of your team members, of course, will be working in a group, either with you or people that you know in the department are going to be working alongside each other in different groups, in different classes, all the time. So you're going to be working in a group, and you're going to be contributing to a team. Here, there, and everywhere. So here is here in this class. There you can think about in 2001, 2012, the classes that you're going to participate in junior year, and then also in the spring sophomore year. Nearly every single class in the aerospace engineering department has some type of group work associated with those activities. When? All the time. Seriously. Not just in this lab, not just in the other sophomore classes, not just in your junior classes, but everywhere, all the time. So why? Why are we spending so much time working on group work and such a big emphasis on group work? It's because engineers work on big, complicated projects. And aerospace engineers specifically work on really big, really complicated, really expensive projects. Group work in those type of activities isn't optional. It's simply mandatory. These projects are too big, too complicated, too expensive for any one individual to complete from start to finish. Because of this, good teammates are highly sought after. Group work is a highly sought after skill by employers, and it's going to make you very, very competitive in the job market. Another reason why group work is so very valuable is a quote here. I really understood the material after I had to explain it to someone else. You may think that you understand some basic concepts in thermodynamics or aerodynamics or statics or engineering methods, but you won't truly understand the material that you don't know until you have to explain these concepts to somebody else, and they ask you, they quiz you about these things. And some of your best people that can participate in those type of activities are your classmates. So how? You were all exposed to some basic concepts of group work in your freshman engineering projects. You may have seen this quadrant thing before in freshman projects that breaks up different people's personality styles and kind of how they think and work well with each other. Refer back to those notes, and then Professor Wingate and Professor Johnson will be talking more about creating a group, forming a group, working with your group in 2001. Now, if you don't understand the material in the group, ask each other. We have found through years and years and years that students present material to other students in a way that it makes it easier for the students to understand the material. Another important aspect of group work in the aerospace engineering department is the fourth R, algorithms. So we're all familiar with reading, writing, and arithmetic. Nowadays, the ability for students to create algorithms is a very highly sought after skill in the job market. Everybody here is going to be working incredibly often with a computer. You need to understand how to program a computer, how to talk to a computer, how to use a computer for what it's good for. Some of you may be familiar with the concept of rubber duck debugging. If you're not, feel free to Google it. But basically what it is a common practice used by computer engineers and everybody that has been associated with writing code. If you write code, inevitably you're going to create a bug. The best way to find a bug is to explain your code to something else. If you don't have any friends around you, or at all, you can use a rubber duck. You can walk this rubber duck, this inanimate object, through your code, and in that process, you are very, very likely to find the issue with your code. Now you, in a group member, have something better than an inanimate object. You have fellow team members. Use them. Explain your code to them. As you're going through that process, either you or they will find the bug in your code 95% of the time. For the other 5% of the time, you just have to try harder. Now, related to writing code in a group brings up this concept of lab quizzes. There will be questions on the lab quizzes that get at the work that was done from the software aspect, from the code writing, the algorithm aspect of your group's work. So don't have one single individual understand and be able to run the entire code. Everybody on the team should have a basic understanding of how the code operates, the different aspects of the code, how to manipulate the code, and of course how to run the code in order to generate the solutions required from the lab assignment. So a little bit more details on how do we work in a group. Now we as part of the instructional team, understand this concept of divide and conquer. We do it too. That's one of the benefits of working in a group is you can split up the activities and you can designate specific tasks and people can work on those tasks individually or in smaller groups. That's perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable to do that in these lab activities, but you need to understand the material that your other team members are working on. You're simply doing yourself a disservice if you don't understand the material that somebody else is working on. It's like paying full price for something, but only getting 70% of what you pay for. Now likewise, we're going to give you a lot of work in the aerospace engineering department. There's no denying that. But we've really made a big push to avoid busy work. We don't want to grade busy work. We don't want you to do busy work. So if you don't understand the purpose of something that you're working on, ask. We're more than happy to explain the bigger picture to you all the time with every activity that you are working on. And one of the most challenging things with group work and teamwork is that it relies on releasing control and let others prove themselves on these tasks that have been assigned to them. Now, we are all a bit of a control freak, but you have to relinquish some of that control and let others prove themselves. Each one of your classmates is a very, very capable individual. Let them prove what they can do. Likewise, let them fail. Let each other fail. You're going to fail yourself. But pick each other up, help each other understand the material, and don't let people stay down. Another thing that we like to point out for group work is that communication is key. Now this seems like a buzzword, and it also seems trivial when I say that engineers aren't necessarily the best communicators. But it's true. We need to do better at communicating with each other. It's one of the key foundations for good group work. So find a way to communicate with your team. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to stress an opinion. And communicate. If things fall behind at the beginning, you can pick each other up. If things fall behind towards the end and as an assignment approaches, things become very, very stressful unnecessarily. Communicate early, communicate often, and you're going to have a much better time working in a group. All of these things get to peer evals. So peer evaluations are something that we'll have for each one of the lab assignments. This is an opportunity for you to give constructive feedback to your team members to help them become better teammates in the future. This is a way that we can quantify participation on an individual level for some of this group work. Be open, be honest, and constructive with these peer evals. They do factor into your grades, so take some time thinking about them. And as always, make sure that you take care of your teammates and help them succeed, and they'll help you succeed. So some do's and don'ts when it comes to group work. Do, share contact information with the team for future meetups. How are you going to communicate? Are you going to communicate over Slack, over group text, over Facebook, if anybody has Facebook anymore? Maybe you can communicate over Twitter. You can tag at bhodge6 in all of your communication. Perfectly fine with me. I may or may not respond. Likewise, define the desired group work format. How do you work best individually, and how do you work best with your teammates? Are you the type of person that likes to work at midnight? That's okay. That's perfectly fine if you're used to doing that on your own. If your team members are the type of people that like to work at 6 a.m. for some crazy reason, maybe you're going to have to come up with some desired work time. Keep in mind that you're only meeting with your group in a designated time slot, 2 hours per week on Wednesday for this particular lab assignment. This lab work will require 2 to 3 times that amount of effort outside of class. You need to define times that work best for everybody in the group, and everybody in the group should do absolutely their best to attend at those times. 2001 with Professor Johnson and Professor Wingate will cover some of these details a little bit more and give you some more tools on how to establish a good group communication structure. And don't wait for the last minute to check in with your team members, to see how they've done the last 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, and see if there's anything you can help with. Of course there's something for you to help with. You should have reached out in week 1 and week 2. So be a good team member, talk with each other early and often, and keep tabs on each other. And if you don't hear from somebody for an extended period of time, feel free to bring me into the group dynamics. I'm here to help you create a good, solid foundation for your group and make sure that your group is working smoothly this entire time. Now, as was mentioned earlier, computer coding and algorithm development is a very important skill for aerospace engineers. A lot of your team members may have a CS minor or maybe working on a CS minor. This doesn't mean that the CS minor is going to be the best coder on your team. And even if they are, sometimes a CS minor should let other people do the majority of the coding and help these other people in your group understand the material that has been presented. Now, what about dividing up the lab report or lab assignment? For these lab activities in 2002, we'll have presentations and also a small lab report for the second lab. Should you completely divide up all of the work associated with that lab report? So person 1 does the abstract, person 2 does the conclusion, and person 3 does whatever's left in the middle. You can do that. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly acceptable. But everybody on your team should read through the report and understand all of the content in the report. If you don't understand the report before submission, get with the individual who wrote that section so that they can help explain it to you.